My name is Jennifer Nelson, and I'm glad to be here in this role. It seems like New Farmer U is rocking along smashingly, and I'm really glad for that. I have a couple things going on right now. I'm kind of perched on this stool because it's a little slippery, okay? And also my glasses are sliding off my new mask. So just bear with me. I'm happy to be in this role and talk about growth, profitability, balance, and success as it relates to farm business. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. 10 years ago, I had a farm dream, and that dream has been realized, but it looks much different today than it did 10 years ago. And I think that's true for a lot of people growing food and on a local level. And so I'm here with these fine folks today to give you a rounded view of what success and profitability and balance looks like for these individuals. Because there's tons of great books. There's tons of great professionals and resources, and a lot of them are right here in this room. Or access to them are right here in this room. But there's no silver bullet. There's no one way, and it is going to evolve, right? And so I think we learn from stories, and so hearing from these people today will help, hopefully help guide you in your process as you go through it. So we have Hannah Bernhardt with Medicine Creek Farm. We have Moses Moimani. I'm sorry, Moses. I know how to say your name. Moses Moimani with Dust to Dawn Farm. He also has Kilimo Min, which is an incubator farm that he can talk about a little bit too. We have Tamara Johnson with Johnson Family Pastures, and then Margot Hansen Pierre with Clover Bee Farm. So it's we had a little meeting about a month ago, and I think this is going to be a great picture of how things can go. So I want to just go down the row and have you just talk a little bit about where and what you're farming, how many acres, timeline, all that stuff. If you could just briefly kind of give an overview. Is it on? Yes.
Hi, okay. My name's Hannah Bernhardt. I own and operate Medicine Creek Farm outside of Finlayson, Minnesota, which is actually just 10 minutes that way. I raise grass-fed beef and lamb and pastured pork for direct market. We sell all of our products online through our website, and we do deliveries to the Twin Cities in Duluth and have a smattering of local customers too. We have 160 acres, and we do holistic management, rotational grazing, and we also started raising livestock guardian dog puppies, and so that is an additional enterprise. And also we've started dabbling with agritourism, and we are opening a farm stay, and we do hip camp, and just starting a journey towards more on-farm events.
Thank you. My name is Moses Moimani. I originally am from Kenya. I came to this country in 2004. In 2006, I got restless and started looking for a place to farm. So I ended up renting a 20 by 20 plot in Hopkins. The first year I rented 3. The second year I rented 11, and then the third year I rented 34. It was come fast, come whatever, So I said, well, I can get as many. But something happened on that third year. One guy came later in July, and he was looking for his plot. And he came to the middle of all that I was given, and he said, my plot is right in the middle there. I need it. So that was a wake-up call, because he told me, by the way, what are you doing here? If you need all these plots, you should be a farmer. Go out there and look for a farm. I need my plot. So that just motivated me to get out of those community plots in Hopkins. I ended up at Big River Farms. After, that was July. By October, November, I had moved to Stillwater, where Big River Farms was. And then I also was interested in growing greens, Kenyan greens, to sell to, the folks in the cities. But the first year in Big River Farms, I was able to sell those greens. Eventually, the second year, it occurred to me that it wasn't sustainable. So I switched and started growing, I would call them regular crops. Trying to find the right word. That took me another 3 years there. But one thing I did, I also, at the back of my mind, I was looking for land. So I needed to stay or to farm or to live on a farm. So I went to the FSA. The first year I went to Big River Farms, and they told me, we need ABCD. So the next 5 years, I worked on ABCD. And then in 2014, I had my farm records, I had my Schedule F, I cleaned up my credit report, stuff like that. And then I went to FSA, and I got the 20-acre farm in Cambridge. However, the amount I was given determined, how big or small the acreage I was able to buy. So since 2014 to 2020, we've just been farming, selling at the farmers market. 2020, we thought, well, it has been 5 years, we need to do something else. So we ended up going back to the community and calling the folks who are also having the same problem with those small plots at the cities. We said, okay, you can come and have a quarter acre, a third acre here. So that was last year. Between last year when we started, we got 13 people. This year we have 19 people. But we tried to spread them to other friends who had farms and some other locations. So at my farm in Cambridge, we have 13 farmers that we are trying to help access land, learn how to grow vegetables, and eventually buy their own farm and be farmers. Thank you.
All right, so I'm Tamara with Johnson Family Pastures. My husband and I farm in northwestern Wisconsin. We started 8 years ago, and I would say that our first few years of farming were pretty bumpy. We had a failed business partnership in our first year. We moved our farm operation to 3 different farm properties. We had 2 kids in those first few years and moved our family 4 times to 4 different houses. So that, I think, would be enough to make someone want to quit, but we're perseverant, I think is the nice way to say it, and we stuck with it. And we established our farm by marketing mostly pastured poultry, eggs and broilers, as well as pastured pork. As we were able to gain more rented acreage, we have moved away from pastured poultry. We don't have any more poultry on our farm. I'm really happy that's where we got our start. I'm really happy we're not raising poultry anymore as well. We now market 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef. We farrow to finish heritage breed hogs, and we raise a small amount of grass-fed lamb, primarily direct to consumer in the Twin Cities Metro as well as Western Wisconsin. Our biggest sales outlets are through farmers markets and through our shares, where customers are buying quarter beef, whole half hog, custom processed. And then we do have a small amount of restaurant business. I guess it's mostly food cafes who buy from us, and then our local food co-op who purchases our meat for their freezer case. And I'll give credit to my husband, who is my business partner. He is full-time on the farm, and I'm full-time on the farm for 6 months out of the year, and I work off-farm part-time during the winter months.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm Margot, and I farm with Andrew. We are Clover Bee Farm. Our business was formed in 2015 as an LLC, and then we rented land for 3 years, which was pretty easy to find, surprisingly. And we rented in River Falls, and we made that connection through the Land Stewardship Project, land clearinghouse. So if you're looking for land, that's probably a good place to start. And we started on 2 acres, and we rented for 3 years. And our first year we lived in an RV with our cat. And then we graduated up to an apartment, and then we now own our own farm, which we purchased in 2018, and it is now 40 acres. We bought 20 this year, and we're very grateful to be there. And our farm is a diversified vegetable farm, and it's definitely built off of relationships.
Yeah, you can just keep that microphone, Margot, because I think we'll start with you coming
Oh,
back
no.
the other way. That's okay. Yeah, so that gives you kind of a snapshot of, I always feel better when I have an idea of where and how many acres and the timeline, just because then you can kind of apply that to your own experience. So we're learning this weekend about how do you define success and profitability? What does that really mean? And I think there are benchmarks, right? And there are things that have been proven to work, best practices, if you will. But I think then on your farm, you need to decide what are those benchmarks that show you that you are being profitable and that you are achieving success, whatever that means. And I think each of you have, similar but some different ways of showing that. So do you want to start by talking about that a little bit, Margot?
Sure. So for me personally, I can reflect on where we started, living in an RV with our cat, and eventually moving up to our own house and stewarding our own land, thanks to FSA, and also we have been blessed with a very good record keeper for our business, which is Andrew. And so he does our numbers, and he does a lot of our record keeping, because I'm a lifelong artist. I am organized in my own way, but if someone was to open a computer that I had kept records on, it would not look like the way Andrew does it. So that's why he's in charge of that. And our first year, we started with 13 CSA members, who were mostly our family and friends. And last year, we were at 61. And as I said, we started in 2016 actually farming. Our first year, we had around $1,000 left over at the end of the year. And we did take out a small loan, an operating loan, but then our CSA money came in. And that loan was through FSA. I think it was for a cooler, but we ended up not really needing the money. We just paid it back right away. Probably thanks to living in an RV. We've always been on a shoestring pretty much, but we've been making it work. And, you know, we grew and grew, and every year we've had a little bit of money left in our bank account at the end of the year, which we take as a success. We do a fist pump at the end of the year if that happens. This year was really hard because of the drought and many other things that happened, but we still have some money left over. And we're working on saving for retirement now. We are thriving at market. We have a growing customer base. We can pay for non-essential items through the farm budget, and we only have necessary debt. We do not farm on credit cards. That is one of our tenements for our farm. I do have student loan debt, but that I pay, the farm also pays for that. And I do use my skills that I learned through college on the farm. So that is to say that there are a lot of ways that you can measure your success. But for us, I think doing less while growing our farm, like doing less work in terms of marketing, and trying just to reach that point where like we feel like this is the farm that we want it to be.
So we reached like major goal for our farm last year as beginning farmers, first generation farmers, is that we were able to purchase 40 of the 160 acres that we were renting. And we have a land contract to be able to purchase the remaining parcels over time, and to be able to finally purchase that farmland and not just be a farmer, but you know, a farmland owner was a really major goal for us. So that was exciting. But as far as how we look at success and profitability, we like spreadsheets and reports. We came from, you know, we have degrees in water and soil science and botany between my husband and I. And so we get together for regular weekly meetings that are a little bit more basic, and then annual meetings that occur over weeks where we pull out all the different reports that have been talked about today and yesterday. So, you know, we look at our financial reports, we look at our customer surveys, we survey our customers regularly. We look at, you know, how did lambing go? How did farrowing go for the year? You know, what our livestock numbers were at, you know, what were our survival rates? And each year it's a little different. There are some years where, you know, our pork production has really shown. There have been years where our poultry has really been, you know, awesome, or where our beef, like last year it was our beef operation last year was just doing great, and it changes year to year. There definitely are some that are consistently better than others. And so, you know, we sit down and we look at that and kind of look at what our goals are for the year. We also revisit some of those key elements of our business plan each year and see what we need to adjust from our own goals as farm business owners, you know, adjusting what our goal is for our farm, what our like shorter, like 5-year term goals are, and then what our goals are for the coming year, and then also long-term for us as a couple and as a business. So I would say those are some of our like spreadsheetable, reportable measures of success. And then, you know, the ones that I think are awesome are just the feedback that we receive from our customers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That feels good to get positive feedback from them. So.
We're going to talk too, I think both of you have kind of like touched on this a little bit. Like, I think everybody here is farming with a life partner, right? And so that has its own challenges. It has its own major benefits. And so, as does solo farming or farming with friends or whatever, you know, however you decide to structure it. So we will talk on that work-life part, but I love that, like, meetings. I don't like spreadsheets myself, but I appreciate my life partner does, and I appreciate that very much. And I'm with Margot. I like to take pictures of what I've harvested because I can look at that, you know, it means more to me. Anyway, Moses, do you want to talk about what benchmarks you use?
Yeah. So our first success was buying land. That's something that made us, because even when we got the land, we didn't feel like, really, are we on land? Are we, or is it tomorrow is going to change? So we had to keep records and just learn how to grow, because growing up in Kenya, it's a tropical climate. You don't think about when to grow what. So we had to learn all this, and every time we are able to successfully grow and market something, we feel good, because we have to learn about everything about that plant, how to grow it, how to use fertilizer, everything. And then we didn't start growing everything at once. We just started with 5 crops, then we'll keep adding one at a time. Now we can grow maybe 50 different, 60, I don't know. So that is, to us, success. The other way we look at success is how much we've made at the end of the year. So early on, I was working as a nurse aide in the nursing home at night, and coming during the day, go out in the field with my wife and a 1-month-old baby. If at the end of that season, even before the end of the season, we didn't have any money that we thought we were going to use. We just said, we have some space there. We'll take money as it comes in the paycheck, put it in the farm. At the end of the season, maybe all of it was used in gas, because we were driving 1 hour, going that way and coming back. But we always tried to look for something that will make us go back the following year. Then over time, when we were still renting, this was when we were renting, both at Big River Farms and in Wisconsin for 3 years before we bought our land. Every year we would try to keep record. I'll try to make a spreadsheet, cash flow, and then I'll try to trace when I spent what money and all that, and how did it disappear. So eventually, the picture started coming in. I started getting used to how to do it, but I actually decided to go back to Indian Head Technical College in Wisconsin. It's across the river, and I did accounting. And the whole reason I went there, I did a 2-year accounting. The whole reason I did was to help me keep this record properly, and maybe a winter job. I never did a winter job. out of the accounting I did, so I have just been using it to do a cash flow after 2 years. But that helped me, so I feel like it helped me even, go through the application for the FSA and the loan. It has helped us plan in the winter, and every year we have been able to increase that number. I was able to stop working in 2011, and then just depend on that. Here and there we would go back and work if the cash flow wasn't showing that we'll go through until the following season. So that's how we could measure success, if we were able to pay our bills all year round, and still have some money to buy seeds. If we had a good year, we'll build a fence, we'll put a well, something like that, because we continued doing this. And then we also told ourselves that we would measure our success every 5 years, in a milestone approach. So the first 5 years we had to rent and prepare everything before we buy land. We had friends who would tell us, go buy land now, but we'd say, no, we don't think we are ready. And then when 5 years were done, we were able to buy land. We felt like, well, we hit the target, we were okay. And then after we bought the land in Cambridge, we had these 5 years in mind and said, at the end of 5 years, we want to see what else we'll do. Because we know we work only 6 months, and maybe we are not fully working. So we need to find something. That's how we ended up incubating other farmers, because we thought if we do that, apart from building a community around us, we can also expand our, I don't know, we just felt like that's the next thing we want to do. That's how we started last year, incubating other farmers. So, thank you.
Yeah, we want you to talk more about that, but maybe we'll have Hannah talk about her benchmarks, because I think that's really important, and there's a couple farmers in here that are interested in doing that too, and that's huge. So, benchmarks?
Okay. Yeah, so for us, we use farm business management. So from a financial perspective, it's easy for me to say, are we successful or not? Because I just asked my instructor, how do we look? Are the numbers looking good? And his reassurance that, our balance sheet looks great, our cash flow works, numbers aren't my thing. So I'm totally fine with using the help in that regard. But then from, another business perspective, I feel like we reached success when we no longer had to market our product. So now we're selling out every year, and I don't have to try anymore to sell it. So that has felt like major success. And so from here, it just feels like easily, now we can just grow if we want. But to get to the point where we could grow, we also had a lot of physical infrastructure. So we started with raw land. It was 160 acres of just hay fields, and my husband built all of our infrastructure, and we got 2 EQIP grants to put in our fencing. And so we're finally at the point where everything is fenced, and in the spring, everything will have water lines, and basically I will feel like the freedom to farm with full set of tools. So that feels like success. And I think the final thing I would say is that sort of a long-term goal and the long-term way I am always looking at success is sort of more of the holistic management of the land. And I'm kind of benchmarking my success based on if I'm seeing the soil improve and I'm seeing our forage improve, and I feel like the wildlife is coming back and our animals are healthy. And I think that's kind of our underlying values and the reason we're farming.
Yeah, and I mean, some of that is kind of, with, especially we want to be able to measure things. We want to be able to see what the outcome is, and a lot of our success is that anecdotal, 2 years ago we had all these hummingbird moths, which we had never had before, and I was like, hey, this means we have more pollen to eat. And, it was like a huge measure of success for me. I mean, it was a medium-sized measure of success. I'm not going to base my whole farm success on the hummingbird moth, but I was glad to see him. So let's talk about what defines work-life. So farm business is challenging in many ways, but also we talked a little bit about farming with your life partner. You live where you work, all of those things. How does that work for the 4 of you, and how have you adjusted your plan to achieve that balance? Do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start.
Okay.
Yeah, so when my husband and I started farming, we took the Land Stewardship Project's Farm Beginnings course, and we found that super valuable because the first thing you do before anything is kind of set a holistic quality of life goal. And I think if we hadn't done that, it would have been even messier than it has been. And in doing that, it's like you see what each person, like why you're farming and what you're wanting to get out of it. And I think that's really important. And it has had to shift. So like in the beginning, my husband really thought like it would be great if in 10 years we're both fully working on the farm. Well, he didn't have as much background in farming as I did, and it really only took him a couple years to be like, I don't think this is what I want to do full time. And so being able to like let that be a moving target and shift roles a little bit was really important. But I would be not fully honest if I didn't say there were like a lot of challenging moments where you feel like, I don't know if this is gonna work because we're on different pages right now, and I handle, farm stress differently than my husband does. And so we've had a lot of talk about barking dogs and raising livestock guardian dogs. And so, it's something that's still like we both have to be flexible because it is a quality of life. If you live there and you can't sleep at night, that's something to take seriously.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that is so, Tamara, you had talked about having weekly meetings and yearly meetings. I think that is so important to like for my partner and I, just to get off the farm, like go to a coffee shop or even do like a retreat somewhere and like bring the paperwork with you and just really hash through it and make sure that you're each, so because if you let those resentments or whatever is building up lie, they're just going to get worse. It's not going to get easier. The dogs aren't going to stop barking. Moses, how is that going for you?
I grew up on a farm, and grew up with livestock, different animals. Grew up, whatever we ate came from our own garden, and then we would sell a little to get extra money. So that is a lifestyle I was looking for, and we are trying to have that lifestyle here too. We would try to grow whatever we can relate to, sweet potatoes, white corn, some greens, because if you grow something that you are connected or you feel good about, but also it's just for the whole family. We would like to grow and get old on the farm, and we also like to pass the farm to the next generation. So it's more like how we see it, like this is what we wish our life would be. And of course it has all the other challenges. There's that struggle between monetizing everything you see at the farm and just putting more money into what you'd like your farm to look like. So that is always there. There's always that challenge of wanting to work off the farm to make more money, because the farm is, I don't know if I'll say hard labor, but the farm is like takes toll on you if you don't, I mean, if you don't actually have that in your mind on, like, this is my lifestyle, this is what I will do. It's easy to say, well, this is too much work. So I always give all the credit to Lorna, my wife. Yeah, because
She seems pretty great.
honestly, she works more than I do on the farm. I like to show people around and run errands. But
Yeah.
at the end, I think if we are still together, it means we love what we are doing. Thank you.
Tamara?
Yeah, so I'll say that our vision for what our lifestyle was going to be like when we started farming had quickly shifted from farming being a hobby and being like collective managers of an orchard and having community gardens to all of a sudden being farm business owners. And so we went from these things being a hobby to something that, because we love doing them, to them being our livelihood. And we reached the point where we were just putting way too much time and energy into the farm and neglecting ourselves. And I will say, there's even times this season where we've allowed that to happen, right? It's, in some ways, it's easy to do in farming. It's easy to do when you're running your own business. And you have to work at creating that balance. And so me and my partner had to start working for the sake of ourselves and the sake of our relationship at making that balance. One of the really simple things we did was we're not talking about farm business matters on the fly, right? Like not while I'm making dinner at night, not while we're crawling into bed. Like we're having a weekly meeting, and that's when we're talking about farm business matters, because it's just too hard for us to be on all the time as a farmer. Like we need a life and a space outside of that and a break from that. And then if we do feel like we have a pressing topic, we'll say, is it okay for me to ask you a farm-related question?
Yes. Qualifier.
And it seems so simple, but it takes practice. And if it's not something that you're used to doing, you need to practice it to get it to work. The other thing we've done to build in more work-life balance is really looking at those enterprises that are taking a lot of our time and that aren't getting a lot of our joy anymore. I did vegetables on a real micro scale for our farm in the beginning, and while it was full of joy for me, it took way too much of my time for what the return was on it, with everything else we had going on and the fact that I was doing it at a human scale with human power. And so that's something that when I let go, it freed up so much time for me with my family, because I didn't have to worry about going out and getting the cucumbers every day and everything like that. And then the other one was when we stopped raising poultry. That was really a work-life balance decision to stop raising broilers. It was in high demand. We were at a scale where we were able to be profitable with it, but something needed to go so that we could build in our family time again. So, yeah.
I love that.
Great, everyone. I love hearing this. This is, I think, one of my favorite topics. I feel kind of like Moses, where I like to shop around too. October comes and I'm like, what else should I be doing? And then I'm like, oh, I'm still supposed to be farming. Well, that's inconvenient. So I will say that Andrew and I also took LSP's beginning farmer class. I don't know that I got that much out of it besides spending that time with my partner, envisioning what our farm could look like, and coming up with goofy business plans, like having a horseshoe crab farm as a way to make $1 million, but we're still not making $1 million, and that's okay with me. So I think from the beginning, when I decided that I wanted to be a farmer, I still wanted to treat it like a job. I didn't really want it to be a lifestyle, even though it is, I wanted to stay like 9 to 5-ish. And I think I've stayed pretty true to that. I'm a sleepy person. I like to sleep in. So I don't usually start before 8 o'clock unless it's going to be like 90 degrees at 8 a.m. Then I'll start early. But Andrew is an early bird, and we definitely balance each other out in that way, in many other ways. So for him, he usually starts early, and he does morning house chores, like putting the dishes away and stuff like that. That's all stuff that has to happen still. You still have to feed yourself and maintain a home. And I would say that our first and second year, we didn't take care of ourselves that well. We had to sit down and have a conversation about what our schedule should actually look like instead of working all the time. We've always had to ask permission before talking about farm stuff. I think maybe we're not as good at it now, but we do it more in the off season. During the season, we always have ideas that we like to bounce off of each other, so we just talk about it. But we always say, farm talk, and then it's like, proceed. So it's kind of like having a safe word. But we definitely got more stressed about all the little things in our first and second year, like missing plantings, not getting stuff in when we were supposed to, making mistakes, forgetting CSA boxes, stuff like that. We were really hard on ourselves, but I think we're a lot kinder to ourselves now. And I remember our first year, I was just feeling really overwhelmed. It was like having an out-of-body experience. Like I was watching myself try to farm, and kind of like the other Margaret was just like laughing at me all the time. And I finally have gotten over that. I've gotten over the imposter syndrome. And it was hard to work together our first couple of years. I think Andrew had a lot of expectations of me that I wasn't living up to, but now we've sort of balanced that out a lot better. We've relaxed a little bit more, and we're better at sticking to an 8 to 10 hour workday than our first few years. We don't include going out to turn the irrigation on in that workday or putting the chickens and the ducks away. Those are things that generally have to happen in order for our well-being to manifest on the farm. So those are sort of like necessary tasks that don't get lumped into that time period. But our dog is really good at keeping us on a schedule too. She gets a little squirrely if you don't feed her on time. So that helps. And then we're also more conscious about friend and family time. We have a schedule that we stick to. We take Saturdays off to be together and run errands. And I told my family that I enjoy hanging out with them still, even though I'm farming. People kind of like stopped inviting me to family functions for a minute, and I was like, this is not okay. I'm still part of this family. So yeah, they try and include me with their family gatherings still, which is great. I haven't been shunned yet. And Andrew is still working through farm guilt of being off the farm and having, feeling like he's supposed to be doing some sort of task on the farm, but I try to remind him that it'll be there later. So I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is so good. Thank you all for being vulnerable and sharing your experience, because that's huge. I love that. The other morning, we do greenhouse plants, and we're like trying to order all our stuff right now, and I got up, and I hadn't even had like a sip of coffee yet, and Mike was like, did you send this email or something like that? And I was like, no. And he's like, I shouldn't talk to you about this right now, should I? I was like, no. Have you seen me take a sip of coffee? No. So I'm going to use that. Farm talk, proceed. Or no, not ready. Okay, so let's talk about networks. I think as, you know, I was in the land access panel downstairs, and like, it's so important in these like growing industries or these, I call it relationship-based business. Relationship-based business, these networks are so important. So who has supported you and how has that contributed to your success? Who wants to start? Margot, do you want to just keep going?
Yes. Earlier I said our farm is built half of relationships, and that's 100% true. I also like to say that I didn't know what networking was until I started farming. Yeah, I didn't understand it. People would be like, well, you have to network. I'm like, I don't know what that is. And now it's like, well, yeah, you go up to someone, you ask them a question, and they give you an answer, and then you keep going. When we first got started and we wanted to do wholesale, I would walk into a restaurant and I'd be like, hi, I'm Charming. Would you like to buy vegetables from me? And people would be like, yeah, I do. And I'd be like, wow, that was incredibly easy. So we started out with farm beginnings through LSP, but even before that, we did apprenticeships or internships. I worked at York Farm in Hutchinson, which is now Good Courage Farm, and Andrew worked for Loon Organics and Gardens of Egan. And so we both made valuable connections in both of those arenas. And so our first year on our own out in River Falls, we had Nick and Joan Olson, who are Prairie Drifter Farm, as mentors. So we would have phone calls with them and talk about when we should be planting stuff. Because when you're on a farm as an apprentice, you're doing the work, but you're not planning the work, and that's a big difference. And so when we were in River Falls, we had other farmers that we were interacting with on the same farm, because it was a big farm. They were renting to us and 2 other people. So we made connections with Jacob and Andrew Hilling of Twin Organics. We've always talked to neighbors, and we like knowing people's stories, so we would get to know them a little bit, and then eventually they'd be like interested in helping us, because a lot of people have machinery that they don't get to use every day, and they like to drive them around. So if you have neighbors with like bobcats and skid steers, they'll probably come over and help you. And of course, you have to reciprocate that help in some way, whether it's baking them cookies or whatever. We go to Moses conferences. Andrew knows so many people. He's very friendly and loves to chat and learn people's stories. So I'm the same way. I like to get to know people and help them out if I can. And so we just build our network all the time. We're part of lots of different organizations, and it's endless. It really is.
Yeah, so it can be intimidating moving into a new community as a beginning farmer, especially if you're farming in different ways than what the surrounding community is used to seeing. But I would say more often than not, the neighbors that we have reached out to and met and interacted with are really excited about what we're doing and to see a young family want to farm in their community. So our neighbors, reaching out to our neighbors and getting to know them right off the bat has been huge. So I alluded to the fact that the first year we were in a business partnership. It was under another business name, and it didn't work out. And it was my husband and I were the ones who needed to leave that partnership in that land. And the chicks had been ordered. We had laying hens. We had a group of 6 sows and a boar and feeder piglets, and we needed to find a place to go. And we had a neighbor purchase our breeding livestock. We had another neighbor offer for us to raise our feeder pigs on her farm for the season, and another neighbor offer to let us raise our broilers on their farm for the season. And we were able to bring our flock of laying hens to the farmhouse, converted to a duplex that we rented in for 9 months while we decided where we were going to land, permanently, as my husband and I being the farm partnership. And so from there, we moved clear across the state. We were in southeast Wisconsin at that time. We moved to northwest Wisconsin, where I have family in the farming community. So that was another big part of my network. We were able to rent from them.
Yeah.
And then we were able to join local organizations, and I think if you can find some that are really local, it's going to be really helpful for you. And the biggest one for us was the Northwest Wisconsin Glaciers Network. It is just this awesome network of glaciers, and it was people who are in that Northwest Wisconsin area. They have a great annual conference. They have a great organizer who will call you up on the phone and talk as long as you want, or as you'll let them. And he has connected us with, we have a few different farms that we've been able to buy cattle from because we're a stocker finisher, so we're not calving on our farms. So we have a consistent supply of stockers through that organization. We've been able to get some really awesome sturdy bale rings through that organization. They do group buys on things like lime. So there's just all sorts of connections and opportunities that we've had through this local organization. And then I'm also someone who likes local government and advocacy for rural communities. So I'm part of the leadership for my Polk Burnett chapter of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. And I would highly recommend if anyone's into local government and advocating for farms and rural communities, the Farmers Union is a great place to do that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Moses, you know a little bit about networking.
Yeah.
He knows a
yeah.
lot.
I'll say when I was in Hopkins doing the community gardens, I wanted to even sell because I had that idea of whatever you grow, you can sell, even if it's 2 tomatoes. So I went to the local car food in St. Louis Park, and I said, I want to sell you tomatoes. And I was told, well, that's not how it works. So I was very disappointed, and looking back, that's what I see. Even when I was looking for land, after the guy told me, you should be a farmer and out there, I got in the car and I started driving around farms that are close to the cities. And I would just show up on a driveway and I would be like, beep, beep. So sometimes they'll come, they are okay, gentle, they want to talk. And one day I just met a lady, she came and she was like, not talking. And then for 5 seconds, and then I had to start the car and reverse and go. So, and that was in 2006. So I didn't have a way of figuring out how I'll get land or market. But when I went to Big River Farms, there was a whole network of farmers that I could rent. So after I finished their program of 2 years, I was able to go rent with another guy called Rodrigo Carla and another one over there. I was able to get into the farmers markets that I am in today in the cities. So I learned that depending on what you do, there's always a network if you are able to get to that network, and then it always opens all that opportunity. And that is what I'm trying to do with the farmers I'm incubating, because I know that's where they are trapped. By letting them come out to my farm, grow, get exposed, they will all eventually get connected to these networks. Thank you.
We 100% could not farm without our parents, especially I have a 5-year-old son. I think that's the number one thing. We couldn't have kids if we didn't have that support to help us in those moments. And I mean, what everyone has said, I mean, all the organizations, Land Stewardship Project, Sustainable Farming Association, Minnesota Farmers Union, we're even members of the Practical Farmers of Iowa because we like those people down there too. And we have 1 million mentors. We did the Moses mentorship program, and I have basically someone I go to in each animal enterprise. my pig got a cut, and I was texting Dana Burtness and being like, what do I do? And if something goes wrong with my dogs, I have my dog mentor, and Abraham's Table Farm, who farms near us. It's like in terms of like social support and just like moral support when the season is getting long. It's like if we didn't have someone to go have dinner with and just kind of like complain and mope with, it would be a lot harder. And at the same time, like celebrate each other's successes, I think. And yeah, I mean, I would say it's not possible to farm truly alone. And I think it's really important to be willing to ask for help when you're a farmer.
That is huge. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us, it takes a certain kind of personality or a set of character traits maybe to want to farm, because there is so much like problem solving and heartbreak and, but also like super awesome celebration. And so to be able to go like, I need help on this. I'm better at it than my partner, Mike. He has a harder time with it, but I'm getting better, I think. So I have a good question in my back pocket for later, but I'm going to hold on to that and keep it there for just a minute because I want to open it up. Does anybody have questions for the panel on what we've already talked about? You want more on something, or something that means something to you? Go ahead. I'll repeat the question for the thingy.
To Moses, regarding that incubator training that you're developing, that sounds really interesting and like a good idea. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
So the question is for Moses to explain more about the incubator training.
Yes, thank you. It's just something that we didn't think we wanted to do 20 farmers. We just wanted a few friends, like 4 or 5. But because we were not using the 15 tillable acres, we were just using about 4 or 5. Then these farmers were able to bring other farmers, and we could not stop them. So at the end, I had to, it was in April. By August, I had started thinking, should I turn into a nonprofit? How is this going to work? I struggled with that until November when I was able to get, actually I'm fiscally sponsored by Renewing the Countryside. So, but that was through going through a lot of other network that I had formed, the farmers market everywhere. But in a nutshell, the farmers that I invited are not just from Kenya. I have Somali farmers have come, interested. I have Sudanese farmers. I have, from different regions of Africa. And they come as a group, and they are like, oh, we are a community, but we'd like to find land where we can, as a community, access, grow food, gather, and do social things, because most of the time, when you come from Africa, and this is more for immigrants, you are almost always, enclosed in the city, because that's where you find your other folks and work. But these people come living behind farms, growing up on farms. Most of them don't come thinking that they are coming to farm. But when they get here and they're driving around, it brings back that memory of, I wish I would be farming too. So when they see Moses on a farm, selling at the farmer's market, and 6 months a year, of course it's hard work, but they would like, how did you do this? How can you be able to show us do this? So this year, from last year to this year, I've been able to, out of the 19, 11 I've been able to sell to wholesale, And hopefully next year, they will be able to now work directly with the buyers instead of going through us. And then in 3 or 4 years, they will be able to have understood or connected, be exposed, and then, connected meaning able to find and be ready to be on land. And then once they're on land, that is success to us. And what we hope is we will create, however they are spread, but we'll create a community of, different farmers, because population is changing. There are resources out there that are actually even meant for these immigrant communities, but some of them are farm-based, but they are not able to access them because they don't have their own as farmers. I'll give an example. The pandemic relief, is allocated to all different groups. And I came through a distribution where they have funds, but they cannot distribute them. They don't have people to claim those meals. Let me use the example of meals. They don't have people to use those meals that they have funds for. And I told them, those are the immigrants that are, you're supposed to prepare a sweet potato leaf kit meal and deliver. But because you're not preparing that, it's not claimed. So what do? Maybe we should create more farmers who can grow sweet potato. Push it through the system, and then it will end up in the central kitchen and in the meal kit and in the community. And then, so that's how I see, as population changes, that's how I see the challenge that is there, that if some people are left out, then the system gets, doesn't get balanced, and then these people continue to be left out. My children, if they don't get connected to land, I grew up on land. My children don't know anything about land. He doesn't even know how to hold a hammer, I give him a hammer, I have friends who come to my farm, and if I give them a hoe, they don't know how to hold a hoe, because they have never had that chance, even to volunteer. But if I'm a farmer and I have these farms, then even those youths, those kids, have a place they can connect to, and they can eventually, even take an agricultural course in college and become a soil scientist. That's how I saw it, and I said, you know what? Let's just open this land. Let's have them come. We're not going to charge them. And the whole of last year, I did maybe a quarter of my time was taken off from farming with Lorna. This year, it's almost 3/4. And I did get some grants, a little bit to pay for my time, but that wasn't enough. But I said I will keep doing it because the community is larger than the time I would be worried about.
Yeah, it's really needed. Who else? Any more questions for the panelists about anything relating to success? I know you've had a lot of information coming your way. Yeah. Yep.
Hannah, what type of dogs are they?
So what I'm breeding, I got from my mentor who started breeding them originally. They're a cross of Maremma, which is the Italian version of a Great Pyrenees, so the big white dogs. They're crossed with Spanish Mastiff, Polish Tatra, and Central Asian Shepherd. But these are all considered close guarding dogs. And so whereas the Great Pyrenees was like a mountain dog that would roam, many, many miles, most of these breeds were bred for dairy production, and so they stay close to the flock because that's what they were bred to do, is to come in and out of the mountains and pastures. And that works a lot better here in the States where our farms are smaller and there's not so much wild land.
And need for stuff like that, and you have a webpage on there?
Yeah, I have a page just about the puppies on my website.
John?
I've got a question about, we talk about success, kind of, you envision building the farm, okay? Now you have the farm. What do you do after the farm? You know what I mean?
Like retirement or like when it's functioning?
I feel like that's part of the success, because you can't, at some point you have to stop expanding, at some point you have to stop taking out loans. Like, what's your vision for the future? What's the end goal?
That's a really good question. Yeah. Margot's got it. Woo.
Saving for retirement. The most unappealing thing you can do. We're working on that. We're working on saving for retirement. You can give a round of applause to Andrew. He just opened up his own 401k this year. Or Roth IRA, sorry. Yep. Through Green Century Funds, which I found. I can recommend it. You recommend it? So far, so good. They're threatening Apple to make their products better so they can keep their investors. I have my own savings. My mom was very adamant about saving money for me when I was a child, and I still have $2,000 of that, of my own money from when I was a wee babe. And I hold on to that like it's the most precious thing in the world because I don't want to let it go. And eventually that'll go into my Roth IRA at some point. But start a Roth IRA if you have even $100 extra at the end of the year and you feel like it's a good place to put it. It'll make money for you while you're out in the field. So I think it's a good investment.
Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Or if you have insight on like transitioning your farm too, I'm interested in that, rather than just simply kind of like save up money to, everybody has a different vision of what they want to do.
I would say to that, because I work with land access and farm transition, as you know, because we do that together. I think start early. Like, don't start when you're, make a plan. Make a plan, have a will, do all the things. Save money, put a little money in a retirement account, even if it's less than what you would like. Like, set yourself up. Just have something to go on and have a plan. At least start thinking about it. I know you're just starting your farm, many of you. At least start thinking about it. Like, what does it look like? Yeah. Tamara, do you have something to say?
Well, I'll just say I have no illusions that my kids are going to take over the farm. So, I guess we just started thinking about is our business is something that could be marketable, that something would be something that someone would want to purchase. And we obviously didn't establish it that way with putting our name in the business name. I don't know if that's where we'll go with it. I also have opened up a Roth IRA and used that as my retirement savings. And my husband thinks that we're going to sell the farm and the herd and move up to a little home on Lake Superior as retirement. So we'll see if that works out. But I don't know, have you planned at all for transitions with wanting your children to farm?
No, well, I know I don't want to be growing vegetables when I'm 60 or more than that. But I also know at some point I'll start really writing gifts to my children as a way of transitioning my property to them. I learned about that, and I know that is that's important because they have grown up on the farm, and right now they know, especially the farmers market side, they know it very well. So I they deserve a gift every year. Hopefully, by the time I retire, they should be able to still have the land remain as, something that they can connect to. That's what I say. Oh, yeah.
You want to say anything?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard because, I don't know if my son's going to want to keep the farm, so it's hard to really start thinking about that yet. There is also the possibility we decide to sell it all and travel the world or something. But I also do have in my mind like a conservation easement so that the land is always kept in agricultural production. So a few thoughts.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ideas. I guess the other thing I would say is try not to be too precious about it. And by that I mean like this is one part of your life, right? Like I know that farming is hard work. I get that, but also it's a business and you have to be realistic and you can't, and this is coming from someone who I worked so hard that I kind of like wore out my body a couple of years ago, and now I've like had to kind of build things up again as continue to manage my health as well as like downsize our farm business and stuff. So don't do that. But yeah, don't, it's a business, right? And like, I know you love it. I love it. And I love our land, but also like we can't take it with us. Like what we can take are our relationships and like, with our friends, with our family, whatever. And so we want to really like have a quality of life. You don't just want to, the farm will take everything you can give it. It just will. You got to draw the boundaries of like, I just saw this quote from Chris Blanchard. Do you remember Purple Pitchfork, who tragically died young? He said a farm is like a 2-year-old, like an insistent 2-year-old. It'll just keep asking for stuff. And I personally really like 2-year-olds, so I don't really like that analogy that much, but you get the point. Like it's gonna just keep, it needs, and you have to say, Anyway, so we have 10 minutes. Should I ask my back pocket question, or do you wanna take a break? What do you think? Oh.
What's the most maybe treasured or hard-fought piece of information you learned that's not gonna like share your total secrets? Just from my nonprofit experience, sometimes you have to like wade through miles of swamp to find out that that's not the right entity to be having this conversation with. And if you would turn, somebody would be offering you a grant at this point. Or you know what I mean? Or it's that, I don't know, the hardest lesson learned. Save a tear or first drop of sweat.
Not everything is as it seems. Not everything is as it seems. You think you have a great plan, and then you do the plan, and you're like, oh, that's not what I thought it was going to be. That happens to me a lot. I'm an ideas person, and I'm like, we're going to do that. And then we get a grant for it or something, and then we do it, and I'm like, I regret doing that.
Whose idea was that?
Usually they're my ideas.
I know. I'm with you.
Yeah. Oh, and working with your partner is fun most of the time. 80-20.
I honestly wish we had gotten into our NRCS and FSA offices sooner.
Yeah.
I would really highly recommend starting to get in and get to know them and establish those relationships early on. And then I think the biggest part of farming advice for me, I can't remember what the farmer's name was, but he was like raising quail eggs, and he was talking about how we're just going to fail. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. At some point in your farming career, you're going to fail. You're going to fall flat on your face. So don't even worry about it happening. It's going to come, and you're going to get back up again. And that was so freeing for me. Like, okay, I don't have to worry about doing it right every time. I'm going to fail, I'm going to get back up. I'm going to fail, I'm going to get back up. It's just part of the process.
What was the question?
Like, whether it's that you can get money for this at this, from your experience, it was maybe the revelation of looking for land rather than garden plots. Just that nugget of gold that you found is shareable of information.
I think the biggest thing I would say is just health is a very important thing in farming. I don't know how I can put it, but I just say healthy, be healthy. That will determine, I attribute a lot of our success to or being healthy all these years. I try to nap, but after maybe 1, 2 o'clock, but I still fell from a ladder, and my wife would come and say, why are you napping every day? And I'm like, I just wanna stay alert. Because what I'm doing here in the farm sometimes, it needs somebody to be alert, not tired, fatigued. But I ended up sliding off the ladder, and I was trying to get up about that high, and I put a ladder. I forgot that I needed to have a ladder that is not going to slip from the bottom. So when I was almost up, it was getting sliding off, and then I came standing. And then I stood actually on the cement floor. And I just had, I felt my brain go black. I fell down. I stayed there for about maybe 3 minutes. Not 3 minutes, maybe 30 seconds before I could not get up. And then a whole week I was not able to walk because the sole of my feet on one foot is the one that was first to touch the floor. Just got that pressure, but I didn't break my leg anyway. So after I got well, the following week when I went to the farmer's market, I met another lady at the farmer's market with the cast, and she said the same thing happened to me, but my shin here got shattered. So that's what I'm saying. It's farming, like she says, we can say all we say, but it's also a high-risk business. Mm-hmm. And I consider being healthy as one way of making sure all those risks are, lowered. I drink, but I try not to drink. I drink maybe a can a year. So, because that one I assume, doesn't make me alert, or even in the morning when you wake up, you still will have those leftover effects, so.
So, I keep on forgetting the one thing, but just a little NRCS tip was we were told we couldn't have our perimeter fencing paid for. And then we heard somebody in another county in a different part of the state had theirs paid for. And instead of just saying, accepting what they told us, my husband got on the phone and called up the other person's agent and said, how come you're covering that and we're not? And then that agent called our agent, and then, before long, then we had our perimeter fences paid for.
Yay.
And I think, that's happened with some other things too, where it's just if you're told no, it's not always the final answer. There's actually the MDA e-commerce cost share grants didn't actually used to be available to farmers. And during the pandemic, I was like, hey, how come we can't use that? And someone was like, that's a good question. And then before you know, Minnesota Farmers Union was talking to MDA, and they were like, you know what, if you're a Minnesota grown license holder, you can access this grant. So I would say, yeah, even if the answer is no, keep asking.
That's great advice. We have like 2 more minutes. Are there any other burning things that you would like to know or that any of you would like to share? All right. Well, go ahead, Margot.
I just wanted to get out my family slogan, don't be shy. You can really ask us anything. And Andrew and I are very happy to share anything that you have to ask us. You can email us or whatever, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way, that we, coming up as beginning farmers, we relied a lot on the networks that were before us, and you can do the same. So thank you all for sharing, and thank you for sticking with us for an hour and a half. I feel like this is really important to think about and to just continue to think about, right? It's going to change. So best of luck to all of you.